Elon Musk's most mysterious warning is happening now. If you're watching this, you might have felt it, a tension rising in the background, a subtle current running beneath the headlines, the tweets, the late-night interviews. Maybe you can't quite name it. Maybe you're wondering if you're imagining things, or if something bigger is rumbling just out of sight. But in the last few weeks, those who pay attention to Elon Musk have noticed something strange, an undercurrent of anxiety in his voice, a shifting pattern in his public statements, hints of something urgent, something even he seems unsure how to spell out directly. For years, Musk has issued warnings about the future. Some have become memes: artificial intelligence, Mars colonization, climate collapse, technological overreach. But there's one warning, more cryptic than the rest, that's starting to pulse through his media appearances, his interviews, his closed-door conversations. It's a warning he rarely finishes, often trailing off, leaving the listener unsettled and the conversation unresolved. Consider this: why would the world's most high-profile innovator, a man known for blunt statements and unapologetic takes, suddenly speak more in riddles than in answers? What does he see approaching that the rest of us can barely sense on the horizon? Pause and let that settle in. See, most people follow the noise. They look for drama, for outrage, for the easy-to-share clip, the viral moment. But those who track patterns, little by little, have picked up on changes in Musk's posture, not just as a CEO, but as a warning system for where the world is headed. He isn't just predicting this time. He's responding. There was one interview, buried deep, rarely replayed, in which the host bluntly asked, "Elon, you've warned about AI, about geopolitical shocks, about energy collapse, but are you saying there's something else now? Something happening that no one is seeing?" Musk paused. Not the dramatic pause of PR training, not the calculated timing of a storyteller. It was the hesitation of a person who feels the limits of language, a momentary search for whether the truth is even safe to share. And then he said quietly, "It's already started. The signals are faint, but, if you look, you'll see them. I just don't think most people want to see." The host pressed, nervous. "What signals?" A half-smile, tired and unwilling, and then the topic shifted to rockets, robots, the buzz of innovation. Those who know Musk know that look. That's not distraction. That's reluctance. Here's the pattern: Musk, when he's truly concerned, doesn't escalate his tone, he goes quiet. He shrinks the frame. He settles into the data, the mechanisms. And what he's seeing, what he's been hinting at in boardrooms, on podcasts, in private roundtables, isn't a movie villain. It's systemic fractures happening in real time. But here's the twist. It's not some singular crisis. It's not one catastrophe. It's multiple, stacked, hidden, feeding off each other in ways our institutions aren't built to handle. Listen. Most people want dystopia to be dramatic. The asteroid. The AI rebellion. Climate doomsday. War. They want a villain in the screenplay, something you can see coming, something someone else can stop. But Musk's warning is more unnerving, because it isn't about a single dramatic event. It's about invisible tipping points. It's about the moment when the world changes, not with a crash, but with a creeping silence, when your baseline reality is already gone, and you didn't notice until it was too late. That's what keeps reappearing in his interviews. That's what leaks through in the nervous glances off camera. He says, "The supply chains are more fragile than anyone admits. Energy grids are held together with assumptions that may not last one more winter. AI models are replicating errors at a rate we're not prepared for. Our incentive systems push everyone to ignore alarms until they become disasters. And then, he stops. He always stops, right at the edge of naming it. Because there is something dangerous in shouting, "Fire," before you know where the exits lead. Because sometimes, the warning itself can set off the thing you're trying to prevent. Let's pull back. Across every domain, technology, politics, environment, even culture, you can see the same pattern Musk keeps hinting at. Systems stretched beyond design limits, when the smallest perturbation can ripple outward. Fragility disguised as progress. Everyone racing for the next quarterly win while the foundations hollow out beneath them. He's not the only person to notice, but he might be the only one willing to say it out loud. And yet, even he won't say it fully. Why? Because the most mysterious warning is always the one you're not sure anyone wants to believe. We live in a time where denial is baked into the system, where the most rational move is often to look away, to meme it into oblivion, to trust that someone else will fix it later. But what if later is over? What if Musk's urgency, his late-night emails, his restlessness, his impenetrable focus, isn't just the mood of an eccentric billionaire, but the signal of someone who knows we are closer to the edge than anyone dares admit? And we're seeing it play out, not in breaking news, but in odd data, strange shortages, failed projects, the sudden collapse of things everyone once thought untouchable. If you're still with me, pause and look around. Everything that was unthinkable is now up for grabs. Old models are breaking. Certainties are in retreat. We keep hoping for normal to return, but normal is no longer the baseline. And if Musk is right, if his mysterious warning is already in motion, then we may not have the luxury of waiting for a single, dramatic signal. We need to become the signal ourselves. We need to learn to notice, to adapt, to act in a world that changes without warning. Because the future is not arriving in headlines. It's arriving in the silence between them. And that, more than anything, is why Musk's most mysterious warning now matters more than ever. So let's linger, just for a moment, in that unsettling silence between headlines, because if you want to understand Musk's most mysterious warning, you need to learn to read not just what's being said, but what's being withheld. It's not about picking apart every soundbite, or chasing every rumor. No, if you look closer, what matters is the rhythm of his urgency, the deliberate way he slows down when others would speed up, the way he favors complexity when the world is desperate for easy answers. You might have noticed, the harder the questions get, the more Elon Musk talks in layers. In that same interview, after his nervous pause, he shifted his focus. We're living in the era of compounding error, small things that go unnoticed by themselves, but start to form patterns if you pay close attention. He doesn't escalate. He doesn't lecture. He just lets the weight hang there, unadorned, like a mathematician waiting for someone else to spot the flaw in the formula. Contrast this with the way most leaders address risk. They deflect. They reassure. They offer speeches about resilience, about progress, about recovery. Musk, though, refuses to fake certainty. He leaves uncertainty exposed, visible and even ugly. And that's his real signal, a willingness to tolerate collective discomfort, to force awareness even when it's inconvenient, even when it puts his own reputation at risk. Maybe that's why people either admire him obsessively, or find him unbearable. Because mystery breeds projection. It's easier to dismiss warnings as eccentric when you don't want to change your behavior, easier to ignore urgency when it challenges your comfort, easier to call him alarmist than to check your own systems for cracks. But here's the difference. For Musk, the warning isn't about being right. It's about being early. He's said it plainly before: by the time everyone agrees there's a crisis, it's already too late to prevent one. He's not interested in the applause that comes after a problem is obvious. He's obsessed with the window before it crystallizes, with pushing action when denial is still possible. So what, exactly, is he hinting at now? It's subtle, but it's there. The collapse of shared narratives. Our trust in institutions eroding, our sense of who's steering the ship dissolving into tribal anger and algorithm-shaped reality bubbles. He points to infrastructure, bridges, power grids, satellites, neural systems, straining from decades of patchwork fixes and government neglect. He points to the global economic seesaw, debt skyrocketing, supply chains stressed to breaking, currencies shifting, productivity unmoored from meaning. And then there's technology itself, AI accelerating in unpredictable directions, unregulated, unaligned, driven by incentives that reward speed over safety. Everywhere, cracks multiplied by complacency. But here's the heart of Musk's warning, the thing he only ever says between the lines. It's not one crisis. It's the convergence of all of them, happening faster, feeding off each other, producing nonlinear outcomes nobody is ready for. He calls it cascade failure in private. A scenario borrowed from engineering, where systems interlock, and one unnoticed flaw ripples out, bringing down everything at once. Think about that image for a second. Our world now is a skyscraper built on top of other skyscrapers. Remove a single key support, and the whole tower shakes. A semiconductor shortage in one region stalls global car manufacturing. A data breach in one system locks out millions from their bank accounts. A few hours with the wrong AI output put stocks, security, relationships, all in jeopardy. Pause, because it's not all doom. If there's another side to Musk's mysterious warnings, it's always a challenge. See the patterns early. Act before incentives nudge us to look away. Become adaptive before the world makes adaptation a matter of survival, not strategy. That's why, if you pay careful attention, he's always balancing doom with a demand for innovation. If you've ever scrolled through the technical documents, the engineering deep dives, the long-winded Twitter threads, you've noticed a theme. The problems might look new, but the solution is constant iteration. Test, break, learn, rebuild, repeat. No waiting for permission. No waiting for consensus. No hoping bureaucracy will react in time. Contrast that with the old playbook, the incremental, foggy optimism you hear from boards, from politicians, from corporate consultants. Everyone wants a 5-year plan written in yesterday's language, but nobody wants to be the one to close the loophole, halt the risky algorithm, update the grid, break open the old models for new scrutiny. That's why Musk's warning sounds so strange, half doom, half dare. He's trying to nudge us out of sleepwalking, away from the tribal urge to argue online while the architecture of daily life quietly degrades. You can see it in practice. When he forced electric vehicles into mainstream discussion, not because it was trendy, but because he knew fossil fuel inertia was the real risk. When he obsessed over reusable rockets, not for spectacle, but because the hidden cost of space stagnation could break humanity's prospects forever. When he's pressed for direct AI oversight, pushed transparency, demanded backdoors be closed, and still warns that we're playing with something we don't understand yet. Every step, a signal. Don't wait for collapse. Engineer the future before entropy wins. But for most people, that's just noise, until it isn't. Until the unthinkable happens and suddenly all the oddball warnings become the blueprint everyone wishes they'd followed sooner. And that's the bitter paradox. The better the system, the more invisible the danger. The more comfortable we are, the more allergic we become to warnings that threaten comfort. Which brings us to the now. Why happening now? Because these patterns of fracture, these compounding errors, are accelerating. Because the normal of yesterday isn't buffering us anymore. Because for the first time in generations, progress isn't outpacing decay, it's barely keeping up, or even stepping back. Musk is ringing the bell before the fire. Not because he wants to be right, but because he's lost patience with the slow drift to disaster that only gets noticed after it's too late. So ask yourself. Are you dismissing warnings that feel inconvenient? Are you scanning reality for patterns that don't fit, or are you only seeing what your feed serves up? When comfort whispers, "Not yet," do you respond with action, or more waiting? Because if there's one thing Musk's most mysterious warning is demanding from everyone watching, it's this. Don't wait for the obvious. The future never announces itself politely. It arrives in the space between things, quietly demanding we grow alert, adaptive, and unafraid to question the entire premise of "it can't happen here." Let's keep going. Now, if you're still watching, still listening beyond the soundbites, beyond the meme wars, beyond the comfortable routines that wrap our lives, it's time to dig into why this warning matters for you. Because Musk isn't just flagging problems in a distant, abstract way. The point of his mysterious warning is that everyone, everywhere, is part of the system at risk, and also, potentially, part of the solution. Pause, think about that. It's easy to hear words like cascade failure, converging crises, or compounding error, and imagine it's all above your pay grade. A billionaire CEO and his billionaire friends. Global summits, corporate power plays, foreign policy moves, grid-level decisions that only experts ever understand. But that's the biggest mistake the world makes, outsourcing the responsibility to someone else, assuming someone else is watching the dials. Remember, none of these big collapses start as big. They begin as neglected emails, overlooked code, small budget cuts, deferred repairs. Decisions to tune out, made quietly, invisibly, millions of times each day by individuals who never expected to matter. That's what makes Musk's warning so haunting. He keeps repeating, in interviews, in all-hands meetings, even in leaked memos. We can't just expect things will get fixed at the last second. There is no "they" who will save us at the end of the movie. The future is decentralized now. If you sleepwalk, you're complicit. Notice the shift in tone. This isn't classic billionaire optimism, the kind that says, "Trust us, we'll handle it." It's a call to vigilance, to participation, to personal responsibility, to refusing the lullaby of hopelessness. Contrast this to the comfort narratives we're handed every day. You hear economic statistics and you're supposed to believe things are basically okay, that inflation is inevitable and someone will put out the next digital fire. You're told the supply chain blips are temporary. That power grids will hold, banks will bail out, AIs will self-regulate, engineers will patch it up. But the last 3 years have proven, over and over, that assurances aren't enough. Black swans don't announce themselves. The small print on every contract is that stability is only guaranteed until it isn't. Here and now, Musk's voice drops, you can see it even when he jokes about it online. He's not just saying, "Worry." He's saying, "Notice." He's saying, what's hidden is already affecting what you think is safe. That's why he keeps circling back to first principles. Asking, what do we actually know? What is real, under the marketing and mythology? Take AI. He doesn't just warn about killer robots. He talks about drift. Models trained on biased data that reinforce errors without anyone realizing. Systems that go wild not because of evil programmers, but because no one's checking the alignment in time. He says, it won't be a movie villain. It will be a blind spot scaled up. Long before the world sees dystopia, they see small, weird anomalies. Unexplained errors. Decisions that make no sense until, suddenly, they're everywhere, impossible to correct. Same goes for climate. People argue about projections for 2100, but Musk keeps pressing the today metrics, the ones nobody wants to add up. Unstable weather patterns. Power outages no one saw coming. Resource depletion camouflaged by supply chain trickery. He calls it the frog in boiling water effect. No drama at first, just a slow erosion of what used to be normal. That's how major systems fail. First gradually, then all at once. And through it all, Musk keeps dodging one label, doomsayer. He's not actually a pessimist. He's radicalized by the possibility that these warnings can still spark action if we change how we listen. Here's what's different. Most people respond to high-stress warnings with either panic or denial. Musk responds with iteration, adaptation. He stays up, not to obsess over fear, but to outwork delay. That's why his warning comes with a blueprint. Notice and act, even if nobody else does. Be first to flag anomalies, even if it makes you unpopular in the room. Treat discomfort as a signal, not an excuse to retreat. Optimize for information, not consensus. Build resilience before you need it, not as a last-minute fix. If you want his results, you have to be willing to accept his discomfort. Consider this. When his back was against the wall with SpaceX, the rockets kept failing, the world laughed, funding dried up. He didn't quit. He narrowed his focus. He ignored the laughter. He burned through the nights, iteration after iteration, on the edge of bankruptcy, until the impossible became visible. When Tesla was called a tech hoax, mocked by automotive giants, shorted to the moon, he didn't dilute the mission or water down the urgency. He leaned in further. He kept warning, we have to transition to sustainable energy before the market says we're out of time. He forced urgency into the culture, sometimes to a fault, but also to a breakthrough. That's the same urgency you can see in his eyes today. Now, he's less focused on new markets or going viral, and more on resilience, adaptability, and the power of early action. He wants us to learn discomfort now, while we still have the advantage. So, ask yourself. If Musk's warning is happening right now, in thousands of invisible ways, seeping into daily life, then where are you still pretending normal will return? Where do you choose comfort over curiosity? Where do you hope you'll have time, instead of choosing to build time by acting earlier, seeing sharper, questioning more openly? It's not hopeless, if you orient yourself to notice sooner. Musk's warning is not for the anxious, or the lazy, or the bitter. It's for those willing to hear the pattern and start interrupting it, from where they are, with what they have, before someone else sets the price for being late. In the end, that's the mystery. Not how Musk sees the future, but how willing the rest of us are to see it with him, before seeing is no longer a choice. Let's take one final breath, because this last part matters most. If you've followed Musk's arc, traced the rocket launches, read the interviews, watched the awkward moments where the joke doesn't quite land, felt the shift from techno-optimist to urgent messenger, you'll sense that something fundamental has changed. His mysterious warning isn't an isolated prediction. It's a summons, a psychological threshold for anyone paying attention. See, warnings by themselves rarely move people. We tune out the noise. We're experts at distraction. We scroll, swipe, and meme our fears numb. But what Musk is doing now is inviting a different kind of reckoning, one that requires us to make a choice about the stories we accept, the risks we tolerate, and the futures we assume are guaranteed. Let's be real. Most of the world reacts to crisis with a familiar pattern. Denial. Anger. Searching for someone to blame. False hope. Finally, a scramble for solutions only when the loss is undeniable. But across every crisis Musk's warned us about, there's a thread you can follow if you look beneath the surface: the people who adapt early, who act before the consensus, who treat disbelief as a temporary tax on being first, they're the ones who shape what comes next. Maybe that's why his warning isn't about the end. It's about transition. He says it over and over: pain is information. That's not a slogan. That's a navigation system. It means discomfort is how reality tells you what needs work, where the cracks are, where the future is asking you to intervene, to rebuild, to move. It does not mean panic. It means proactive attention. Think about it. The challenge in hearing Musk's most mysterious warning isn't about intellect. It's about ego. About our ability to tolerate being wrong, uneasy, uncertain. I tease about getting outside the comfort zone that tells you someone else, a CEO, a leader, a government, will take care of the heavy lift. But if you see what he sees, you can't stay still anymore. Every system you touch is now dynamic, sensitive, unpredictable. Every career, every town, every industry is exposed. The grid that holds your power, the supply chain that delivers your phone, the algorithms that filter your news, they're as stable as your willingness to ask harder questions. So, what should you do? Let's be honest. You don't need to be Elon Musk, or try to think exactly like him. But you can take his most important lesson and make it your own: stop outsourcing vigilance, start building it in, personally, relentlessly, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Here are 5 real questions you should start with. 1. What baseline assumptions am I betting my life on? My career? My family? Am I just hoping someone else will keep the lights on, the shelves full, the data safe? Or am I asking, what could go wrong, and what can I actually do before it does? 2. Am I ignoring weak signals? Those moments, news items, or data points that feel off, but are easy to dismiss. What if those oddities are the real signs the world is giving me? Am I brave enough to investigate before it's official? 3. When faced with discomfort, do I inquire, or do I rationalize? Musk's entire career has been built on moving toward friction, not away. If something feels wrong, do I look for the source, the correction, or do I medicate it with distraction, busyness, or someone else's soothing voice? 4. Do I build resilience on purpose, or do I hope adaptation will be forced upon me? Resilience is built before crisis. Do I only prepare when headlines turn red, or am I quietly iterating safety nets, redundancies, skills, relationships, before the need becomes dire? 5. Am I willing to act without the crowd? The hardest lesson: Musk moves first, alone, and absorbs the criticism. Would I rather be wrong alone, or late with everyone else? If you're squirming at any of those, good. That's the internal alarm Musk wants you to notice. See, the true warning isn't about doom. It's about capacity. Capacity to adapt before the price of change rises. Capacity to see the hard truth and not run from it. Capacity to choose agency over apathy, because apathy is a luxury that systems in transition cannot afford. If you want a map for what comes next, stop seeking comfort, start seeking clarity. If Musk's most mysterious warning is happening now, it means the culture of denial will not protect you. Instead, proactivity, awareness, pattern recognition, and taking initiative when it still feels optional, those are your best defenses. Not just for world-changing billionaires, but for ordinary people meant to survive, and even thrive, through the curveballs that history throws our way. And here's the twist. Warning is also opportunity. Every collapse opens space for a new pattern. Each failed system births innovators from the ashes, the builders, the adapters, the relentless questioners who turn chaos into new beginnings. You don't have to change the world at global scale. But you do have to train yourself to notice when it's changing. To refuse denial, to get curious where others roll their eyes, to become a signal in a world of noise. This is what Elon Musk's mysterious warning is really about. We're not waiting for a single headline. We're living in the age where the systems are shifting, right now, beneath our feet. So, are you watching? Are you noticing? Are you acting? Or are you just hoping, waiting, sleepwalking forward, trusting in a normal that no longer exists? Stop relying on a past that can't repeat. Get alert. Get adaptive. Get uncomfortable, because comfort is a symptom of stagnation, not safety. And remember, the most mysterious warnings are never given in shout, they're given in silence. In the odd pauses, the unsaid sentences, the patterns you notice when everyone else is trying to be entertained. Don't wait for slogans. Don't hope for headlines. Learn to trust your own ability to see before the world catches up. The warning is here. It's happening now. What you do next, it matters more than you think.